Using myself here and going into a panel that I know nothing about, and I don't mean the subject matter. I mean, I know the subject matter, but I don't know how clay runs.
Yeah, he's operates. I guess you kind of know my style or whatever I do.
Absolutely.
I don't know what it is. It's called rambling. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get anybody else in here, but Richard is going to do some scheduling snafu. Richard's going to leave us in half an hour and join our Lewis panel. So I may defer to him strongly off the top, so we can get what anything that you thought of you want to say about this. We were to probably go in the opposite order now because I think you were leading to Sergio.
Yeah.
And we can go backwards. This is the chronological way, and there's a reason for that.
So I'm going to be the one who messes it up.
You're going to mess up everything all day, Richard.
Absolutely.
So
it's going to be a bloody nightmare.
we'll wait a few more minutes and see if everybody, one more minute here, we can get going since we got.
You know, sadly, the only technical I saw in the theater was Bring Me the Head of Fredo Garcia. Everything else I've seen, but not in the theater.
The ones with the asterisks are questionable. Some people would not put on a Western list, but there's reasons why I do, and there's some writers that would talk about it that way.
I would tend to agree with this, seriously.
Because Garcia, I love that opening. It's like, you don't know what time period it is.
Yep.
To the planes. Yeah, you're just watching it and he's like, and all of a sudden there's a jet plane. Oh, okay, we're not in the 1800s, So.
I would consider that one a Western, even though it's not set in the Old West.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So.
Or like No Country for Old Men.
Oh yeah, you got all kinds of cool examples of the modern, Western set in contemporary times.
Yeah.
I'm using the word modern here for this panel in terms of how it just, we're in the post-John Wayne world,
Yeah.
and the whole genre shifted, So, anyway, you want to go ahead and start? Introduce yourself, Richard.
My name is Richard Shelbach. Please call me Rich. I was a TV writer for a number of years in the 80s and 90s, and then and it was associated with shows like Alf and Are You Afraid of the Dark, things like that. I have then graduated to print writing, which I enjoy a lot more. So anyhow, so I've been busy, and now I have a podcast and a website. Gee, who doesn't? So.
And you have a table this year.
Yeah, I do, and I have yet to sit at it. And the two people that I was going to have come sit at the table, who also do the podcast with me, are both sick. So the table just sits there, and
You get your business cards on it. So.
I have my business cards on it. Anyway, so I was born in 1958, and there's a reason I created it. I'm 56. Jeez.
I'm 58.
You're 58.
Yeah.
And the reason is most everybody that I'm friends with have older brothers. They belong to the true after World War II generation. And so those people are into Westerns, big time, because that was almost all that was on TV at the time for entertainment. I, on the other hand, came from the science fiction and the spy era. So I was never that into Westerns. To me, it was fashion, etc.
And were you kind of like ignoring the whole saturation of television in a way?
I wasn't part of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
That was the thing. I just wasn't part of it. And in fact, he was so shocked he left. Anyhow, so
Oh no, he will close the door. Okay, no, thank
I
you.
was just
And I was gonna compliment your shirt, the video watchdog shirt there.
Yeah.
And is that a Western horror shirt you have on?
Yeah, it's available out here. I just bought it yesterday. It says Gravestone instead of Tombstone.
Oh, okay.
And it's got the Universal Monsters dressed up like the Earps and
That's
Dogs.
nice mashup there,
That's
okay.
awesome, nice. So, anyway, so because I wasn't born into that era, I wasn't I wasn't a John Wayne fan except for Rio Bravo. And I thought that was a brilliant movie and couldn't figure out why everything else wasn't like Rio Bravo. And then all of a sudden I was at the Strand Theater in Hamden, Connecticut, and I saw A Fistful of Dollars, followed by A Few Dollars More, followed by Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and then Once Upon a Time in America. And I was like, this is my idea of Western. I don't know why it's different. I was a kid, you know. I really don't know why it was so different, but I knew that this is a completely different animal. And I have since made the correlation between the beginning of Rio Bravo and the beginning of Once Upon a Time in the West being basically quiet openings, but important openings. You know, openings that smack you, like Jaws, like Private Ryan, like A Touch of Evil. You know, these were openings that once you saw them, you were in. You didn't care what happened with the rest of the movie. You were in. You were not leaving your seat. So anyway, that's kind of the world I grew up with, and I have since come across more spaghetti westerns, and I just find that I love them. And I think that the more current thing, like, you know, Unforgiven and Tombstone, is I think we owe the kind of look to those movies, even though they're more of a subtle look. I think that we owe that to Sergio Leone. So anyway, that's basically where I come from. That I wasn't a kid who was into Six Guns and things like that. I have a good friend, brother from another mother kind of guy in the audience, and he is a few years older than I am, and knows Westerns, you know, and I never made that connection. And then all of a sudden, like I said, the spaghetti westerns came in, and that's what I gravitated towards.
Now, thanks. I'm Ted, by the way, and I'm an enthusiast, historian. I work at a TV station. I do sometimes movie reviews. I have written for Entertainment Magazine, and a lot kind of all over the place, really. You know, actually, I was thinking about the genesis of this panel. I think one of the ideals was, I was thinking of Mary Hartley being here, and she's in Ride the High Country, and that's a Peckinpah's really. There's a film he did before that, a western called Deadly Companions, The Deadly Companions, in 61. But Ride the High Country is a pivotal film, and I thought, ooh, and I thought, you know, Woods kind of use that as the focal point of. And that's why. But I have a big passion for this director. Anybody know Bud Bedecker? Has anybody heard of him? Okay, you guys.
Yeah, the renowned westerns. I've watched all of those.
Right, but Randall Scott, the side.
Yeah, I haven't seen his bullfighter movies yet.
Yeah, there's 3 of those. Yeah. So anyway, then I knew Richard wanted to jump on because of the Leone love. And I have this huge passion for Sergio, and I said we're going to go a little backwards here because I want to kind of because Richard's going to have to leave us here. He's going to go to an hour limits panel, I think. Scheduling snafu. So anyway, what he was saying is the spaghetti westerns came along. Sergio basically took the Yojimbo. And he used that. He basically ripped it off. I mean, and he saw that. And he, the funny thing was, Clint at the same time saw a bunch of Kurosawa films in California. So when Clint got the script, he recognized it. He goes, well, this is your, oh, but even before that, when Clint was in the theater, he actually said, this would be a good Western.
Yep.
And then of course Sergio keyed into it too. And Sergio had been, his father was a silent film director, his mother was an actress. He grew up in the Cinecittà.
Yeah. Well, that's as good as I can do, let's put it that way.
The Hollywood, in Italy, basically. And he prolonged his career as assistant director and grew up in the ranks. If you watch A Bicycle Thief, one of the classic neo-realism films, you'll see Sergio in there as a cameo.
Yeah.
And he worked with, he was assistant to Victoria De Sica. So anyway, I'm going to be all over the map, so forgive me, because this is stuff I saw the Lanleys too, like Richard did, and it did a number on me. It's my trilogy. And I got so many kids that say, Star Wars is my trilogy. It's The Man with No Name is my trilogy. I had to have a poncho. I wanted to grow stubble. I was looking for those little cigars. My lady up the street knitted me a poncho for my 12-inch G.I. Joes and Captain Action so they could wear a poncho. That's how obsessed I was getting. Bought the soundtracks and I would go to sleep playing Ennio Morricone music. And the thing about, and then getting to Once Upon a Time in the West after the trilogy, that's another. I was talking about it on another panel. I think it transcends a Western. It gets to an operatic stage and almost this unbelievable poetic art level that isn't even Western. It's just a whole different level of filmmaking and what this narrative and what's going on there. But anyway, it definitely took the genre to a different course, a different direction. To the fact, it just cracks me up to this day. You'll see a commercial for barbecue sauce. And what are they doing in it? And it's a Western motif. It's the big close-ups, the Morricone type music, the weird angles, the dirt, the filth, and none of that was really prevalent. Now, we're going to back up here with Bedeker, and there's some precedents just like Horry's. It's not all, overnight this happened, but Sergio gets the credit.
He does.
And he certainly just took it to a whole new direction.
There was a barbecue sauce, I believe, that had a whip sound in it, and it also had Leone style music.
There's a beer commercial now that has the ecstasy of gold.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Ecstasy of Gold is the climatic music when Eli Walk is running in the grave. In the grave at the end, and Metallica opens up all the concerts with Ecstasy. As a prologue to before they come out on stage and start playing. Yeah. And they use it every time of their concerts now.
And people our age tend to think, so because they're using a 20-year-old soundtrack, it's like, no, it's not 20, it's 50, it's 60, it's like that's staying power.
Well, it's in some ways, I remember they were listening lists for the best rock and roll albums, and sometimes people will list Morricone soundtracks from the spaghetti westerns on there because they use it, especially the guitar. It's almost like using it from the beat, not Bill Eddie, but who's the one down,
Link Wright.
Huh?
Link Wright.
Yeah, Link Wright. It's kind of Morricone's almost channeling kind of that Link Wright vibe with those guitars that they don't use in the Western. And of course, I guess we should go ahead and mention, and I'm preaching to the choir here, you guys probably know as much, and please chime in if you want to say anything or have some input on all this, because like I said, I'm just going to be all over the map here, what kind of comes to me. In Once Upon a Time in the West, they got to a point where Ennio had constructed all the themes for the main characters. And in the Italian cinema, they do all their audio in posting and in the post production, so they could. Some of it's practical, And then just I think I just came across even a better reason that they would do that. But they had German actors, they had Spanish extras, they had all these different languages, and they had American actors, and so they could do this where they had Morricone had already got the themes written. They played that on the set of Once Upon a Time in the West, and I think that explains why when you watch Charles Bronson walking, or Claudia Cardinal walking when she comes across her dead family or new dead family, that there's this kind of interesting pace to it, and it's because the music is playing on the set, and they could actually do their movements to the set, and that adds a whole different level of how it's all going to come out on camera.
And you suddenly realize why it's so visually interesting, because
Yes.
in essence, they're shooting a silent movie.
Yeah, and Quentin always says about Good, Bad, and the Ugly is one of Quentin Tarantino's favorite films of all time, period. And then he says about Once Upon a Time in the West, if you want to know about directing, you want to see how a film is directed, you just watch that film, and you can feel the director and how the camera's movement and the music and how everything just works together. It's just almost like a workshop of how to become a director, a director of a very distinct visual style. And of course, the Mexican standoffs that Tarantino loves. It starts with Leone. I mean, it starts with Few Hours War, where Lee Van Cleef and the bad guy, El Indio and Clint, and they're all standing there. And Clint's got his rifle in case he cheats, and he goes, no. And then they play the watch and they do the standoff. The funny thing is, this always interests me, but it was a big deal when they debuted on ABC. And I actually made flyers. I wish I didn't find those. I took pictures of a kind of crack magazine of the spaghetti westerns that he had funny word balloons in them. Mm-hmm. I cut the word balloons out and I would say, on ABC, Sunday night at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, whatever. And I passed those out to my classmates. I was so obsessive with these things. And
I find that incredibly hard to believe.
So
Ted knows more about cinema than anybody else I know, and I just love being on panels with him. So,
what did you get down? Now, there's a couple of things we should mention when it comes to Sergio, and before you take off is, did you ever see Ducky Sucker? Fistful, or as it's known as Fistful Dynamite, or Once Upon a Time, The Revolution.
I did not see Revolution. I did see Ducky Sucker.
Yeah.
And again, it's Sergio, but it isn't kind of, it's.
Well, he didn't want to direct it originally.
I know.
Yeah.
And you can tell his heart isn't quite there.
And but
the artist in him would not allow him to do a shitty job.
Yeah. In here I said Ducky Sucker or Fistful Dynamite, the three of you. It's basically James Colbert is an IRA. From the IRA and terrorist. He's over in Mexico, and the Mexican Revolution is happening, and Rod Steiger is a peasant. He's kind of a variation of the Eli Wallach character from The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. And he wants to rob banks. That's all he wants to get. He has all these illegitimate children as his gang. And he ends up hoodwinking Colbert into helping him rob a bank, but when they do, I won't spoil all of it, but when they blow up the bank and he's thinking, I'm going to get all these riches, and I think it turns out the bank was actually a prison for political prisoners, and then he frees the prisoner, and they come rushing out, and the Morricone music's playing. It's a great sequence, and Steiger's like, what's up on that, and Colbert's like, the revolution, and of course the time's a little bit off. The IRA and the Mexican Revolution, and if you guys love Leone and his use of flashbacks, because A Few Hours War and in Once Upon the West, he perfects this whole thing of this flashback keeps on showing up, but you don't know the whole story until it gets to the very end. Ducky Sucker has deals with a major flashback narrative that's really interesting. And it's political, and the characters are more adult. You get a sense of the you tell me, Richard, that with the trilogy, it's almost like a cartoon or pop
Yeah.
or a fairy tale.
Absolutely.
It has this really kind of fun element to it. And the characters are archetypes. You know, I love this Danny Perry. There's this book called Cult Movies. Danny Perry is such one of my favorite writers. The days before VCRs were around, you would read these books on movies, and he was a great writer. And I recommend you Cult Movies 1, 2, and 3. If you guys love movies, you need to read those books. I think some of them are available as an ebook on Amazon. He talked about how they're fairy tales for adults.
Yeah, they are.
There's
Very
that
much so.
because they're just so outrageous. And you have these. You got the good guy, but he's not really that good. You got the bad guy. He's pretty bad. Even though if you watch The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, there's the one scene I thought was really worthwhile putting back in was when Angel Eyes goes to the fort,
Yeah.
and you see a little bit of humanity in Angel and Lee Van Cleef in that.
Yeah, but just.
Just a little bit, yeah. And I was always a little bit thrown off because I loved Lee Van Cleef as Colonel Mortimer so much in the second one that I hated to see him as a bad guy, so evil in the second one. So anyway, the ugly, the good, it kind of distills it, the good, bad, the ugly. And Tuco is, the element I forgot I'm trying to get at is that Danny came up with that idea that these were gods that were walking on the earth. And you're gonna get the good God and the bad God, and he's only good by default. He's not really, a white hat good guy. And then you got a half god, and that's Tuco. He's he's earthy and he's messed up and he's always loud. He's and running around and being crazy. And you kind of get that with Ducky Sucker, with Cobra being in the good, and the fact that these Once Upon a Time in the West, again, it repeats it there. Bronson is a good. Henry Fonda is really bad. He kills children. He shoots children. And then Jason Robards is the half-human, the earthy guy.
Right.
And then when we get the gunfight at the end, this is the end of the West. These are the end of these gods. Because what's coming is the train.
Even that great dialogue between him and Fonda right before the gunfight. Was it dying race, dying people?
Yes, a dying race.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah.
And these are this is the end of the twilight of the gods in this movie, and the train's coming, and more Mr. Choo-Choos. The guy that was on crutches, he dies, of course, but there's going to be more of them, and they all deal with money. They don't deal with guns.
Yeah.
They deal with money. And so I thought that was a great analogy to come up with.
And people from my generation, I cannot tell you the surprise that you get when you see Fonda.
Oh.
Because
I would have loved
this guy. I mean, this.
Do you
this
remember
guy
that
could
in
have
the theater?
been- Oh yeah.
See, I didn't see
Absolutely.
it. I didn't see it on television.
Absolutely. I figured, oh wow, it's an interesting take. He's.
So did you go into
black.
it? Yeah. Did you go into it thinking that Fonda was just going to be another character? You didn't really think of him. He was going to be the bad
I
guy?
thought he was going to be the good guy.
Okay.
And
You really thought? Okay, cool.
And
So
it
it worked.
worked. Well, that's an interesting take because I knew about black hats and white hats. That kind of, that's in you. It's like when you watch Night of the Living Dead and you realize that there are no black hats and white hats in this. Figuratively, there's none in that movie. There's no good guys and bad guys. There's just kind of people. And so, but with Fonda, I figured, oh, okay, well, they're going kind of in an opposite direction here. He's going to be dressed in black, but of course, he's the good guy. And then you find out not only is he not the good guy, but he's really not the good guy. And I can just imagine the kind of sales job that had to be done there, because I think if I had been a director, I was not a chance in hell I'm going to give him this role. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, the guy's great, but he certainly can't play this guy. So
Well, Sergio actually wanted Henry Fonda in Fistful of Dollars because he couldn't, and Henry, Italian, no way, and the money wasn't there, and et cetera. He went down the line, Charles Bronson, he actually wanted Coburn that early. He always wanted Coburn, Bronson that early. And he was just going down the line, and he couldn't get anywhere. Because Sergio had done one film with his name on it, was Colossus of Rhodes. It was a sword and sandal film. So somebody in his office said, hey, what do you think about this Clint Eastwood? That he's a Rowdy Yates in Rawhide, and they screened a 62mm or episode of Rawhide. It's in the book somewhere. You can see which one that Sergio watched. And they go, okay, and he was affordable. He was available and affordable. Summer break between seasons of Rawhide. And
He brought his own pistol from Rawhide.
Yeah, there's a big controversy about the whole costume, but Clint basically brought all his wardrobe with him. Sergio, so Clint says, well, I haven't been out of the country. I get a free vacation, get to see a little bit of Europe, and this film tanks that nobody's going to see.
Yeah, no one's going to see it.
So and he didn't even realize when it was end up making money. Because he was shooting a movie called either Magnificent Stranger or The Magnificent Something Else, and they were kind of playing off the fact that Magnificent Seven was a remake of a Kurosawa film too, Magnificent Seven. And then he comes back and he sees that there's this Italian Western Fistful of Dollars making money, and he didn't realize it. They called him and said, hey, would you like to do a sequel? He's like, well, can I at least see the first film? Can I at least see the first film? Can I see a print of the film? And but yeah. And I love the story. Have you guys all, if I'm repeating a lot of stuff that you guys already know, because we can move on. I love the story where Sergio gets a cease, well, I don't know if it's a cease and desist. This is but it's basically a letter from Kurosawa's lawyers in Toho Studio saying, you didn't ask for permission, you didn't get the rights for this, and you've basically done our film, and remade the film. And so Sergio's people are going, this is not that great. And Sergio's going, I got a letter from the master! I got a letter from the master! He was so excited that he got a letter from Kurosawa that it really excited him that he did that.
Yep.
So, I always was also, maybe you can ask, because of course you didn't watch Rawhide. Did you watch Rawhide on television?
No. I've seen it since, I love it, but
Yeah.
I mean, at the time, no.
Did you? Well, you guys are all young here, so I don't.
I was actually watching,
Huh?
They're on MeTV.
Yes, right. Yeah, that's true.
I was watching Outer Limits and stuff like that.
I was always asking my dad why. I go, was it a real shock to see Clint Eastwood like this? Because he's kind of just like sidekick and Rawhide. It's just kind of. There's nothing really, it's nothing really anything that Clint Eastwood the persona that we know and love. And so I wonder, just like the Henry Fonda was a shock to the system, I'm always curious if, for people that went to see the Fistful of Dollars and were very familiar with him from Rawhide, was like, oh wow, he's got a beard, and he's smoking cigars, he doesn't talk much, he's got this weird outfit. I always thought that was how much of a shock the system was, or not that much.
And again, I would have not known that because I didn't see Rawhide, but I thought, hey, this guy's cool. I was also kind of surprised that he didn't appear to have a name.
Yeah. So of course he did, actually, that's the marketing. United Artists decided that they got, and again, like I may be repeating stories that you guys have already know about her. Basically, so Fistful of Dollars comes out and does gangbusters in Italy, and then also there's just a flood of westerns, and all the money in the Asian markets goes to Toho and Kurosawa, and so and there was rights issues going on and struggling and fighting, so that's why it was a delay in America. So it's 64. The film is 64. We don't see it till 67. So Clint goes back over the next break of Rawhide and shoots $40 more. And then by that time, there's Hollywood, and I'm sure more than just United Artists, but somebody from UA goes over there and says, Sergio, give us another one. We're gonna give you $1 million, or the budget was even higher. And Sergio was even not going to do a third one, but when he approached him, he just spitballed a scenario to him, and then his producer didn't even know it. And so, United Artists already said, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to market this as a franchise because they were doing success with the Bond films, and they also had done 2 Pink Panther films back to back. So they were really. They were getting really savvy with this whole series of marketing and how to present it to the audience and the public. And so they say, if you watch the trailers of there's a DVD extras, it says that it's the first of its kind. It won't be the last. They already had all 3 in the can, and so they released the first 2 in the same year in '67. And then Good Bad Billy comes out shortly after that, and this is bang, you're at the theater, bang, the next one. Bang, the other one, and then they start mixing and matching them at the drive-in.
Yep.
And I saw it 40,000 times as a kid, so I saw them in all these different matchups.
And then when they came out on disc, they were actually so affordable
Oh, yeah.
that I think they were selling the trilogy for like $23 or something like
Real
that.
sellers.
And it was like perfect. I can own all 3. Great, wonderful. Listen, I'm going to leave you in the very capable
Last
hands
words?
of my dear friend Ted. Yeah, you really, this guy's the star here.
No, he's,
Enjoy.
well, but I'm going to miss having participants up here.
Well, the good one is we always have 1975.
Yes.
About an hour.
In an hour. Yeah.
Okay, take care,
See you
everyone.
later.
Thank you so much.
So we're gonna go backwards here. We're gonna back up. The 2 other directors I wanted to talk about that helped shape what modern westerns were, and the fact that do you guys all like John Wayne films? The old school westerns, I never have dismissed them. I think Richard's back when, and he does, I don't know what he does now, but back when he was a kid. My dad we had westerns in the household, so I'm 2 years younger than he is. So, and if anything, my dad liked westerns, so in fact, if anything, I don't think my dad was much into fantasy and horror, and so I had a broad input.
I was an 80s kid,
Okay.
and so I grew up watching TBS. Living in Atlanta, I was a Braves fan. So before or after the Braves game, because they had all the rights to all the Warner Brothers and all of the MGM UA films.
Right.
So they had all the Dollars trilogy. They had all the John Wayne films, and so as well as Magnificent Seven and a bunch of those other ones. So I grew up watching all those before or after the Braves game, and that's where I was introduced to all of these.
Yeah, the thing about the being on TV, the Man with No Name trilogies are just, they just show those things ad nauseum because of the
Easter with Eastwood,
Yeah.
to do that. The Easter with Eastwood marathons, yeah.
So I want to back up. So you had basically, westerns have been around since the beginning of cinema. The Great Train Robbery, for instance, the great classic song there. So, but they were not really taken serious, even though people point out it's our mythology, the Americas of mythology. And then when basically most everybody says when John Ford made Stagecoach in '39 with John Wayne, that started. We can do serious and big budget and do this as a legit film and not just be serials or the Coppola and Cassidy and the Roy Rogers. Eventually they would come along in those kind of westerns and just be cheap and by the book and good guy bad guy showdown and bang. And of course John Ford brought a lot to him, and then and there was a team of John Ford and John Wayne, and then you get this as the 50s progress, and Jimmy Stewart comes back from the war. He teams up with Anthony Mann, this director, and they do a series of westerns. I recommend you guys, if you haven't seen those, to watch them. There's a psychological layer starting to happen with the westerns, and they're starting to get a little bit more interesting, a little bit more intense. playing with the psychic of those characters out west in the wilderness.
Because most of Jimmy Stewart's characters in those movies are not 100% good guys.
Yeah.
There are a
He's
little.
got some obsessions.
They usually have a dark history,
Yeah.
or like in I think it's Bend of the River,
Yeah.
where he's like he had some, you know, at the end he was picking off people one by one. You know, he's got a bit of a background as a I think he was in Missouri during the Civil War or something. Like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got this. So you got this deepening and darkening of the Western happening slightly, and of course Anthony Mann and Jimmy Stewart had a nice budget and they had big stars and stuff. And so then Jimmy and Anthony actually had a falling out, and then unfortunately, some consider Anthony Mann's one of the best westerns he ever did was The Man of the West with Gary Cooper. And that's almost like a summation of his Western cycles, because Anthony Mann moves on to epic films like Fall of the Roman Empire and big things. Like he becomes David Lean type character. And so The Man of the West is a nice one to check out too. And it plays with really interesting dark elements of the West. And then there's this Bud Bedecker. I actually have an interesting connection to him because he actually lived in my hometown. He was adopted by a family in Evansville, Indiana, a rich family. And he lived in Evansville, Indiana, and went to high school there. And then he took off in college, and he was very athletic. He ended up driving around Europe, and then he ended up in Mexico, and he learned how to bullfight. It's very important, bullfighting. Unusually for a gringo to be a bullfighter, and he got taught by the best bullfighters down there. So but his mom was always kind of like, didn't like him being out loose and about and kind of roaming around. So she got him to go end up in LA and Hollywood, and he was a technical advisor on Blood and Sand, an old ancient bullfight film.
Tyrone Power.
Exactly. And he's in there, and he ends up has connections with the studio, and he ends up working up the ladder, and he becomes a director. But he's doing B films, he's doing some film noirs, he's doing just odds and ends. And he did a bullfighter film that actually got Oscar nominated for his screenplay, and Robert Stack's in it, and John Wayne's company produced it. This all connects here. And so John Wayne's company, Batjack, gets a script by this guy named Burt Kennedy, 7 Men From Now, and he gives it, and they go, John goes, I'm busy doing this, or I don't have time to do this, or so let's give it to Randolph Scott to do it. I think he'd be good for this. And by that time, Randolph Scott has just become a Western star. He's kind of given up. It's interesting if you go to early Randolph Scott films. He's doing screwball comedies and romances and things like that, dramas. But then he just settles into being a Western actor and just rode that thing to the bank until he retired. Being his last film is The High Country with Peckinpah. But we're jumping ahead. So they do 7 from Now, and it really clicks. The producer,
It's Harry Brown.
Harry Brown. Thank you. Harry Brown, Randolph Scott is the lead, and Burt Kennedy doing the screenplays. But this is a Batjack production. But they like being together and doing this film. And I think like even the opening is a riff. Well, there's a scene where Randolph Scott comes across these guys, and he embeds himself with these guys, and they're all talking and chit-chatting. Well, it turns out Randolph's there to shoot him. and the way it's presented, and if you watch that sequence, and then you watch Once Upon a Time in the West, when those 3 guys show up at the train station with Bronson, and he goes, I think you brought 1 horse too many, and then they proceed to have the gun. You see the blueprint of that a little bit in 7 Men From Now at the beginning. And
it's been a while since, I think he does how many men are you, look where, and he guns it down. It's like 7 men.
And when I saw that, because I saw this way later, because I came to Budeker late, I was like, oh my gosh, So they loved working together, so they said, let's do some more movies. So and Randy had his own company with this Harry Brown. And so and now it's been called the Renown Cycle, R-A-N for random, and O-W-N for the Brown, and they call it the Renown Cycle. So they end up doing these low-budget films, The Tall T in 57, Decision at Sundown in 57, Buchanan Rides Alone in 58. You can count Westbound, you really shouldn't, but it's Randolph Scott and Bedecker. He still had a movie to do for Warner Brothers, and they were in the middle of doing these really fun ones they were working on. And they said, well, Bedecker goes, well, I might as well direct it since we're at the middle of working together. And it's not really got the feel of these other ones we're talking about, the Renown Cycle. So it's, you can include it or not, and it's like a different studio. All the other ones are, other than the Cinnamon, that was a Bad Jack production, all the other ones are Columbia. Ride Lonesome and Comanche Station. That takes you up to 1960. And everybody just kind of like, okay, they're nice little small, low-budget westerns. Bedecker's over here, the Randolph Scott, and they're just probably just, people were treating them like other Randolph Scott westerns that were just okay. But the French, the good old French, they see the Truffaut and Godard and all the critics over there. They were starting to praise this stuff, and they got into it and said, wait a minute, look at these things. And now, over the years, they got a reputation. And then, when I was in college, they had this book, Horizons West, and they've done if you guys are really interested in it, it's just interesting reading. It's a little academic, but they actually revised it, and they added Leone in 4 chapters in this one. But this one was on Bedecker, Anthony Mann, and let's see, Anthony Mann, Bedecker, and Peckinpah. So this was used as a textbook for a class I didn't take, but the girl that was in the class, and she moved away and she gave it to me. And I'm like, Bedecker, I hadn't heard of this thing. This would be late 70s, early 80s. And so all of a sudden I start seeing some of the films on a VHS tape, or I see it on HBO or Cinemax or something. So I would take 1 or 2 of these things. And then a friend of mine actually started watching my copies before I watched them. And I'm like, okay. And then we found out about the Evansville connection, and I put all this together. And why are everybody's going crazy over there? And Danny Perry in that cult movies, he wrote up one on Ride Lonesome. So I'm like, what is the deal? Oh, Tall T, yes. Yeah, you're right, thank you. Because that's my favorite.
That's how I got introduced to Bedecker.
Yeah, and that shows up in, if you ever see the documentary Scorsese did about the journey through American filmmaking, he has a sequence, he uses the Tall T sequence where Randolph Scott, Richard Boone are talking, and they're like, well, where's the kid? And Henry Silla goes, he's in the well too. They shot a kid and dumped him in the well. And it's just, the scene's great. There's a scene where Richard Boone and Randolph Scott are like nose to nose almost, and Richard Boone goes, you scared? And Randolph Scott goes, yeah. It's just great. So anyway, this cycle comes along, and when you guys watch these things, have you watched all of them?
Yes.
They're almost like a variation of a theme. They're almost like you're kind of watching the same thing, just slightly. It's like watching Jane Austen movies, because all the Jane Austen books, it's just slight characters are slightly just altered and mixed around, but you got the same kind of scenarios playing out. And all these films, the villains it's just as interesting as the good guy. A lot of times Randolph Scott's character is not revealed, what he's doing, what's going on. So when Sergio's sucking all this in. So there's a great biography on Sergio, it's called Something to Do with Death. And when he ran across Bud Bedecker at the festival one year, he goes, Bud, I stole everything from you. So the Bedecker was just, hey Robbie. It was really an eye-opener to see these films, and especially if you watch them back to back, you'll be amazed how this. And then there's a showdown in Seven for Now with Lee Marvin. Plus, it was another thing that is fun about these films. It's a showcase of these up-and-comer guys like Richard Boone, Lee Marvin, James Coburn, James Best. There's a few other ones in there, but I can go on about this. And
With
the
the
LQ Jones to start
character actors too, just character actors who just did westerns flat out.
Yeah. So anyway, what's that?
LQ Jones. And
Yeah, oh yeah.
Sid
LQ
Holmeyer. I mean,
Yeah. It's just, it's really fun. And you can tell differences too. The ones with the Burt Kennedy scripts are the really good ones. The ones without Burt Kennedy, I think he might have helped, did some doctoring on Buchanan Rides Alone. But the Decision at Sundown and Buchanan Rides Alone are a little bit weaker and not as strong as the Tall T and Ride Lonesome and some of them from that.
All right, we're gonna fight now, but we can't write it. Steve.
Is that Ride Lonesome your favorite one?
Oh man, that's.
Tall T's mine.
Yeah, it's all
I can understand.
I love the
astonishing. But
I love the 190 degree turn it takes. You start watching this thing, you think, I'm just watching another fun-loving Randolph Scott Western. And then, boy, when he gets to, and it takes a drastic turn. And it's really wonderful. So
And it's also based on Elmore Leonard's film.
Yeah,
early
which-
on, yeah.
Which, when you've got good bones, I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully you can build something. So.
But I love the fact that in Bedeker's films and Leone's films, there's no more exposition than you need.
Yes.
They do not, it's very, you don't even, I think Jill is the only character in Once Upon a Time in the West, you know her full name.
Yeah.
The others, you have no name, they're either nicknames or they're just the first names. So you don't really know who they are.
Yes.
And Bedeker's stories were a lot like that, and he did a lot of his storytelling visually. Like a lot of the relationship between Richard Boone and Randolph Scott in The Tall T, they never say anything. They never sit and talk about it.
Well, but there is a good conversation later when,
there is a good
when he talks about I wanted to have a land. I wanted to be like you,
Yeah.
but I took this turn, and he's asking Randolph Scott, how's it having the land? How is it doing these things? And Rand, he just said, he wants. You can see Richard Boone wants to be that, but he can't. He's thinking of the wrong.
I think he wishes he had Randolph Scott as his partner rather than Henry Sullivan Skip-Holmeyer.
Yeah, Skip. He's in. I think he's in two of them.
He's in. I think he's in Buchanan Rides Alone as well.
Well, right. So, but anyway, yeah. So these are from 56 to 60. Okay. So, and we got like about 15 more minutes, so I should. We kind of started backwards. Richard had to leave.
I'm sorry I'm late. I believe me, you wanted me to take a shower.
It was essentially a snafu, and we kind of covered Leone first, and of course, each of these directors deserve a panel that would be 2 or 3, 4 hours. We're not.
One through line. It's something that I think it's a good career to look at. As an actor, because he touches on 2 of the 3 directors we're talking about here. Randolph Scott. Watch his career.
Oh yeah.
Because he worked with Bedeker and he worked with Peckinpah.
Right.
By the High Country. And what you can see there is over the course of Randolph Scott's career that the growth of the Western, the desire to make it something more than just light entertainment, which is what Randolph Scott's career kind of started off with as far as his Westerns are concerned.
Yeah.
And then became. Starting with Bedeker,
Yeah,
that's where
thanks to Burt,
phenomenal stuff.
Better.
Yeah, and you can see that. You can see that in. You can even see it with Roy Rogers, even though he never worked with the directors we're talking about, where this desire to turn the Western into something adult.
Yes.
Adult in the best word.
Yeah,
the best way you can describe that.
All right, before you got here, I was talking about how you start seeing with Ford and John Ford a little bit, and it gets stronger with Anthony Mann and the darkness a little bit.
Definitely with Mann.
And then after the Mann cycle kind of dies out, and then Bud fills in the void, and then along comes this guy named Sam Peckinpah, who was doing a lot of interesting stuff in the West. If you guys are second Peckinpah films or a Western fan, or you got to watch The Westerner with Brian Keith, and you can see it was like a Western, unlike all the other Westerns that were happening at the time, and you see the seeds of what Sam will become and how his outlook on the Western is.
His work on television is really surprising sometimes.
The Rifleman, the foundation of the Rifleman is all Sam.
And several Gunsmoke.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
So it's all there, and like I said, it easily could be a major panel on Sam. The reason I was getting to Sam because the cycle here is because it times out kind of interesting that when he does Deadly Companions, because Maureen O'Hara he was suggested to Maureen O'Hara, that was her project, the Deadly Companions, and the end he got changed. Sam right off the bat, at the beginning, he's always having trouble with the head office with his films, unfortunately. But Sam was his own worst enemy too, at times. So in '62, he does this film, Ride the High Country, and I think I'm gonna try to get Mary to sign this. I actually dug up my their disc. And it happens to have Randolph Scott and Joel McCrea. And what's interesting is it's Randolph Scott's last film. Joel does a couple more after that, but a lot of people look at it as Joel's last great film.
Yeah, it's the last meaningful film.
Yeah, in fact, and I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with this film and have heard that I think they wanted Joel and Randolph in the opposite roles, and they switched. And so I forget which one said, I want to do this, I want to change it up. I think Randolph, maybe Randy.
I think it was.
Because I want to play bad guy. I want to kind of mess it up a little bit. And what's interesting about this film, it's like, what's the word I want to, valedictorian? It's a send-off. It's a farewell to the kind of westerns we had been watching since the silent era. And but it has, it's the fact that it has Randolph Scott coming out of the Buddicker cycle. You've got this, it's kind of modern sense, a little bit of the modern sensibility edge going on it. And they're dying out, again, as I said once upon a West, the gods. You got these two major iconic Western actors in a situation, and one of them dies, that's a spoiler alert, sorry, if you hadn't seen it. And it's such an interesting, when you start looking at this in a bigger picture, it's like, okay, Sam's saying goodbye, farewell, we're gonna take this in a whole new direction, which he started with Major Dundee, but that kind of got his legs cut out from under him. And then he gets the market with Wild Bunch. But, and it's so beautiful, it's so interesting, and to see these guys at the top of their game and doing this situation, and as a farewell to this whole cycle that Richard was talking about, the John Wayne, the good guy, bad guy, and the nuances.
Black and white hats.
Yeah. So you had that, and then again, so then he does Major Dundee, and that's a panel on itself too.
That's a 3-hour conversation.
Yeah. And they've tried to help reconstruct that to get it closer to what it should have been, but they didn't get to shoot some things they needed to shoot. They put some stuff back into this. There's a new print, a new cutout. They actually, unprecedented. They don't do this too often. They actually put a new score to it. If you depending on the DVD or the Blu-ray you can actually listen to a modern score, being sensible to the movie, because they just stuck this, not to be dismissive of the composer.
So the music was good. It just didn't always.
No, it wasn't. Sam didn't get his choice on that. So anyway, but what's interesting about Dundee too is that when you watch the Wild Bunch, you see some of the elements that he's playing with in Dundee in the Wild Bunch, but he had much more control, and it was his baby, and he got to do what he wanted to do.
That's the thing. That's what I love most about Peckinpah is how it's very easy to trace that theme starting in Ride the High Country. I mean, if you want to go back, you can look at some of the stuff he wrote for television as well, and it plays into Junior Bonner, Ballad of Cable Hogue, and this kind of looking back at younger days wistfully, but sometimes he's hopeful, but sometimes he's really not.
Yeah, a lot of the essays you read on the Wild Bunch, a lot of the academics and the high-tone critics will zoom on that little sequence in Mexico where they have this little just moment of peace and love and greenery and the river, and it's just sweet, and then we get back into the carnage.
It's the dialogue. It's kind of the statement of purpose from William Holden, and he's slapped down by Ernest Borgnine, but the question is about you fall back to what?
Yeah.
What would you do?
Yeah, exactly. And then of course when they go for the walk, so they go say Angel.
That's why people, critics at the time, I think, in sense of complaining that Pat Garrett, Billy the Kid, it's not very accurate to the story. They're too old to play these roles. But it's not about Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. It's about the dying
that's
of the
even
West.
more. Yeah. So Ride the High Country is dealing with it in a way. Wild Bunch is dealing with it. And then I should mention, I want to mention Ballad of Cable Hogue. He does this little
sweet, beautiful.
Sweet Western, there's a song about butterflies or something in the middle of it, and it's just really, it just like, oh, wait a minute. Actually, one of my ideals for a panel is Sam really that bloody? And that would, you would use that as an example. About Cable Hogan. It's a Western, and it's still, there's an automobile in it, so it's dealing with some of
It's
the
early
themes.
1900s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to give the spoiler, but yeah, the automobile plays
Yeah, it plays an important part, yes.
Yeah.
So then he does, and then there's Junior Bonner, which you could, can I say it's contemporary Western because it does with radio, and it's guys with the cowboy hats, and you can play with that. But then Pat Garrett comes along, and I'm Bob Dylan, I'm a big Bob, so
I think he's got the best music of a lot of Peggy Westwoods. He didn't have Morricone with it.
Do you like the Slim Pickens death scene? Do you like it with the vocals or without the vocals?
I like it with the vocals. I think the vocals.
I think it
yeah.
works with both.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I go with the vocals too.
Yeah, it's a great scene. There's a scene, if you haven't seen Pat Garrett, there's a scene where Slim Pickens, he's a reluctant sheriff of this county that Colbert, Pat Garrett needs his help. And Katie Girardo just happens to be his wife. And of course, Katie Girardo's from High Noon. We know a lot of stuff, but she's always associated with High Noon. And so
She's awesome in that movie.
Yeah, she's
the
a
shotgun shells hidden in her bra.
yeah. And Slim gets shot, mortally shot. He's gonna die because he gets shot. And it's just the sequence. They got the sun just right. It's behind him. He's sitting there, and Katie, his wife, doesn't get close to him. She just gets close enough and just sits there, and you see the look in her eyes, the love. I'm just starting getting emotional. And they're playing Knocking on Heaven's Door in that sequence, and it's just amazing. It's really beautiful. So, and I totally, if you guys are into this at all, I recommend the Pat Garrett Billy Kid box set. You get 3, 4 versions.
And then you have to figure out which version.
Yeah, there's so many
three
versions.
complete versions on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get the version apparently that he stole and labeled something else.
And in fact, it's even different than the one that TNT was showing. It's similar, but there were 2 early cuts. They're not finished, but they're 2 early cuts. They're not. You shouldn't really call them director's cut because he was still working on it.
Yeah.
And then he walked off on it. But there was one that they actually supplanted the theatrical with this TNT. It was actually shown on the Z channel initially. And it's got a amazing bookend editing sequence. And you see Pat Garrett, actually the death of Pat, and then he edits it in such a way, it's a treat to watch this, what he does with that.
Yeah, I'd never seen the epilogue. I'd never
Yeah.
seen the epilogue before I saw that version on the Criterion.
Right, and so they supplanted it on home video with this, they called it the director's cut, or, and it would be on TBS and
They have to label it something.
Yeah, right. Well, back then too, we were not as savvy. I mean, it's been the home video market's been growing up with all these different terms. So now on the Criterion, they said that version is hard to repair, but they came across another print that's similar. It's another early cut, and that's on the Criterion. So that's brand new to all of us eyes on that. And then there's a 50th anniversary cut that Paul Cedar, one of the there's a group of Peck and Paul experts. They always end up doing most of the audio commentaries. I call them the Peck and Paul posse. And then another critic picked that up, and I think I get the credit on that. But it's like Nick Redman.
They owe you a coat.
Yeah, there you go. Nick Redman, Paul Cedar, Gardner Simmons, and David Weddle. David Weddle did a biography on Sam. Paul Cedar is an editor, a filmmaker, and an editor, and he did books and essays on. Well, he did an amazing book. I can bring that along. A book, everything you want to know about Pat Garrett the Kid. He did the book. Because it goes back to. Do you guys knew that Sam had worked on One Eye Jacks with Marlon Brando's One Eye Western?
I knew he worked on it. I didn't know exactly what the extent of it was.
Yeah, he was working on the screenplay. He got hired by Marlon to do the screenplay because of his TV work, and he was really happy with it. Then Marlon gets Stanley Kubrick involved, and then Stanley said, "Yeah, we don't need that." He got Sam out of the picture. So Sam had already been working on this book about this. What's the Ian Hendry book? The book is One Eye Jacks is based on. It's I forgot. I should have wrote that down in my notes.
Can't remember.
But anyway, so and it's basically a rework of Billy the Kid. And so One Eye Jacks is, if you watch that with the knowledge, it's kind of a Billy the Kid father, Pat Garrett. It's got that dynamic of the older man and a younger man, and they have to face each other off. And then, so
Has
when-
there ever been a book written on the production of One Eye Jack?
well, this Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, he goes into it somewhat.
Yeah,
He-
I mean,
But I don't know, not all the, no, not all the mechanics, but in this book, like I said, he actually goes back to Pat Garrett himself wrote a book about how he killed Billy the Kid. And of course, how you have to take it with a grain of salt or not, but it's.
you gotta take it with a bucket of salt.
Yeah. So Pat Garrett wrote the book, and then there's this book that One Eye Jacks, I wish I knew what the book's called. But it's, One Eye Jacks is based on it. So then you had One Eye Jacks, and then Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid comes on. It's a really well-researched screenplay. It's more spiritual, more hippy-dippy, ethereal. He's a modern writer, modern 70s, 60s guy. But they love the script. But Sam got his hands on it, and then started working, and he started bringing in the elements that he had done with One Eye Jacks, back in the early days of that production. And then, of course, Sam put his stamp on it. And of course, it's a trouble production. Anyway, Paul Seedorf, these guys, they got these experts on Peckinpah. And Paul was able to take the first cut, director's cut they had that was circulating, and the theatrical cut, and the TV syndicated cut, because they substituted chicken heads being shot for bottles, they put that all together and made he thinks, I'm going to try to get this close to what Sam had. So they put that together, and Warner Brothers was kind of being a dick about the whole thing. They didn't give enough money and time, and they were trying to get a box set together. There was a Western box set of Peckinpah, and Dundee was supposed to be in there, and Warner's didn't work it out. That would have been, that's a shame. Anyway, that 50th anniversary cut that Cedar did is a tweaked, newer one on this box set. So you get to see this one early cut that's brand new to our eyes. Cedar's, we tweaked his one, and he plays with it, trims it down, and plays it. Because he thinks Sam was not finished, and Sam it wasn't finished with it. And then you get the theatrical cut on there. And the theatrical cut is watchable, even though it didn't do well. I saw it in the drive-in, actually, believe it or not. And I think the only reason is my uncle was 5 years older than me, and he's going because Bob Dylan's in it. And I'm just going because it's a movie, and it's a Western, and I like James Coburn. And I wasn't a Dylan fanatic then. Now I'm a Dylan obsessive. So anyway, that I recommend, and that's really the death of Western. And it's just, I remember watching, I was, my first days as a mass control operator running films at my TV station I work at. We had a late night movie on Sunday night, and we ran Fat Garrett Billy Kid. And again, I wasn't a Dylan fan, but I'm just kind of watching it, and as a movie, and being a movie buff, or a so-called movie buff. And they're like, oh my God, every bloody supporting Western character of any repute is in this film.
Oh yeah.
And I'm thinking, in fact, the only person missing, and it's funny because he's part of sort of his stock company, because he had him in Wild Bunch. I think he was in Dundee too. Strother Martin's not in it. Doug Taylor's in it, but Strother is not in it. But everybody else, and Ben Johnson should have also would have been nice to be in there.
And Colorado too would have been nice.
Yeah, but
And Doug Taylor's only in that little scene.
Depending on what print you see, you don't even get to see Doug Taylor.
I was about to say, depending on the cut.
Yeah. So anyway, it's amazing. I was just sitting there running this movie going, oh my, it was really crazy. So this whole point of this panel was the modern Western is, Buttaker, like I said, I don't know if you were in the room, Rodney, but when Sergio saw Bud, he says, I stole everything from you, Bud, I stole everything from you. And you see the building blocks of Sergio. I mean, and of course, one thing we didn't talk about, I think we didn't mention, when we were talking about Once Upon a West, is that he's coming out, he's acting by the way, Bernardo Bertolucci was kind of in a lull between his first couple early films. And, he's a very political guy, an Italian, and he's in the theaters, I think, watching one of the Leone films. And Sergio just happened to be there. And they, start talking about, and Bernardo said, I love, he was perceptive enough, he wasn't dismissing, because the spaghetti, Sergio's film got dismissed pretty easily by a lot of people that, that now would probably have are dead.
Well, it's important to acknowledge that the reason someone like Bertolucci, the Italians have never looked at the Western as like secondary cinema.
Yeah.
They've always seen it, unlike a lot of American critics, they never looked down on the genre.
Yeah.
So why would Bertolucci go watch a Western? Because it's art. He wants to see it.
Right, and he recognized Sergio's
Right.
stuff. And another thing that plays into that, over the years that I've done reading countless of stuff on this, the TV had really made an inroad in Italian households. So they were going to theaters all the time, and that's one reason they would just flood. Once something would hit, Sword and Sandals, flood the market. All the Western hits, flood the market. And then they would put, I think they would just, I don't know if I think they would just stick an intermission in there. Right?
Do you know much about the way Italians went to the cinema in the 60s?
The eating, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, they would go, and they would like be there with family and friends,
Yeah.
eating, sitting through the movie once, talking about the movie, then the movie would start again, they go, let's go ahead and watch it again and order food. And it would be an event for just, they went to cinema differently.
Yeah,
There's also the German connection.
Yeah.
There's German, there's an author, I forget his name.
One or two.
Yes.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
hugely popular,
Yes.
so Westerns were hugely popular in Germany.
Charahan.
And also, they didn't have enough Westerns because they didn't have the TV
Right.
Westerns yet.
Right.
And so they co-financed a lot of
Whereas
these.
we were getting so much Westerns, we kind of got sick of it. It was like almost oversaturated.
Yeah, television just burned itself
Yeah.
out.
So, we're out of time, but the last thing I should say what I was going to get at was, so Bertolucci sees it, Dario Argento gets involved, Sergio goes, and Paramount's given Sergio carte blanche basically to do, they want another Western, he wants to do Once Upon a Time in America, even back then, a gangster film. They let him, please give us another Western, they want the United Artists money off the trilogy. They get him, they just say, give us another Western. So Bernardo and Dario and Leone sat down and screened countless of Westerns. And some they had seen, probably ones they can get their hands on now. And they just take everything from it. And there's two books, and this is one of them, where there's a chapter where Christopher Fraley, who did the biography of Leone, he cites all the things they pulled from all these Westerns they screened, and then they wrote it up.
And each one of them made lists, and then they sat down and compared their lists. They were like, oh, okay, all the things that we all three have on these lists, let's just circle them. Yeah.
So when you can watch that, and you've got any good knowledge of Westerns, you're going to go, oh, here's the Irish Family from a John Ford film. Oh, there's a Jubal with Charles Bronson. That's from that Glenn Ford Western. Oh, that's from Butter, the Ride Lonesome scenario of, and Lee Van Cleef is in Ride Lonesome as well. But anyway, so that was it. And so it almost, and again, the end of the Western, and then we had a new trend, and then everything has changed. Like I said, talked earlier about how even TV commercials that sell barbecue sauce now have more Leone elements than they have John Ford elements in a way that sell the Western with that Western motif. Thank you for coming. Hopefully I didn't ramble all over the place too much. But yeah, and if you like this stuff, and some of the ones you haven't seen that I have on this list, check them out. You'll really enjoy it. So anyway, thanks guys. So, appreciate it. So yeah, Richard had to take off. There was a scheduling snafu. He had to go.
Oh, really? Is he on too?
Our limits back at 10 o'clock.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, okay.
I might take a look at the prison.
Oh yeah.
If I'd known it was just gonna be you, I would have never come. No. I would have hustled.
I was
down there
almost
real
gonna
fast.
say just come up to the table and join me. Yeah, there's a new one out. Christopher Fleming's put a new one out on Sergio. He collected all Leone's essays and all Leone's interviews, and it goes all the film. This is just on Once Upon the West. This book, and I don't know if it's gonna. I think it's probably pricey in the second hand.
I think we've had this conversation.
Yeah, it's out of print, but it's
But the new one is still at retail price. And it's a whole survey of Leone, and like I said, and it's got some great photos and
I
artwork.
flipped through that, it was looking impressive.
Yeah.
Boy, the price tag is steep.
And then and if you haven't read his biography on Leone, I recommend that too. It's,
What, Freelands?
I want to get that Horizons West as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then I said the Pat Garrett book is really good. It's so thorough. I'm like, and I had, it took forever to get to the movie because he goes through all these permutations of till we get to Pat Garrett.
Yeah, but that's what I want.
That's the beauty.
We're the obsessives, man.
It's the beauty. It's the beauty of it. So yeah, I love it. So, anyway.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
I think we've had this conversation before. It's like trying to figure out what your favorite of Leone's films just as a whole, and then like okay, you make it easy for yourself by chopping off a couple of movies and saying, well, just the westerns. What's your favorite of the westerns? It's like I can't. I don't know. I usually come back to that.
Hey, Koshak, is that who you are?
Yeah.
So what brought you into this panel?
Well, I like westerns. I'm a big fan of westerns. I always come out of this convention with homework of stuff to watch.
So have you seen any Leone films?
Oh yeah.
Okay, most of them. I mean, they're not that many.
I love the Dollars trilogy. That's
Okay.
probably one of my favorite set of westerns, probably ever. Most of the ones you talked about, I have not actually seen, so I have a lot to go.
Here,
watch.
let me give you this. I have made extra copies from my.
Yeah.
Let me.
You don't have to make the list yourself. There you go.
Sweet.
And I would recommend, one of the asterisks are questionable westerns, like I was trying to say earlier, but they're all worth seeing. I mean, Rodney will back this up. We're the kind of fans that the flawed films and the weaker films are even as
Yes.
important and
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
than the
Yeah.
polished
Because of different
masterpieces.
elements in them. Yeah, it's wonderful stuff. But if you've not seen any of the Bud Boetticher films, just dive in and swim around. You don't have to worry about which one you see first. Just whichever you come across first. Just go.
I gotta get a picture here.